Hello, and welcome to Butterfly, the Becoming. I never thought my life would change the way it did. One day at work, the entire department was called into the conference room, and that was the day we all lost our jobs. I had built a life for 20 years around that job, 2 decades of loyalty, stability, and a steady routine. Then, without warning, everything changed. The job I thought I would retire from, in a single moment, it was gone, just like that. I was out of a job. The shock of being a single mother with a 12-year-old son and no steady income hit me hard. The jobs were relocated to another state. No relocation package, no mercy. They called it an opportunity, but the truth was different. We were told to reapply for the same jobs we had already been doing. The only change was the title, and even if you were rehired, no relocation support would be offered. I want you to picture that moment with me. The world I had worked so hard to build began to collapse. The savings I thought would sustain me disappeared. The nights grew long with tears. I tried to hide from my child. What looked like the end became the beginning. What I thought was only loss became my opportunity. What I thought would break me became the very story of my becoming. My life has always taught me lessons. One of the hardest came in 2015 when I lost my job. I had never been unemployed in my career. I never had to learn how to search for work. I was a single mother with a 12-year-old son. And when the job ended, the ground beneath me shifted. I applied for more than 100 jobs and found no real opportunity. The unemployment benefits lasted only 2 months. My savings, the thing I thought would carry me through, began to shrink. And then it was gone. No income, no offers, only bills that arrived like clockwork. I tried to shield my son from my fear. I wanted his life to feel normal. He was only 12. I needed help. My pride had always told me, you do not need to ask for help. But now I was learning what it means when the life you planned for quickly falls away. And in that fall, I discovered something I had overlooked. Worth is not measured by a paycheck or a title. Worth is an inner measure, untouched by anyone. In 2009, I moved to another state. And that was not the first time loss had touched me. In 2009, when the market crashed, the real estate market, I had lost 3 rental properties. I could not sell them. The market was upside down. The bank told me because they were not my primary residence, they were considered investment properties. And so they refused any financial support. They foreclosed and sold them for less than they had cost. I had invested thousands into those apartments, and the loss was more than financial. It stripped away the sense of security I had once leaned on. By the time 2015 came, I had built a new house for my son and me, a place of hope after so much loss. But even that home would soon be at risk. When my savings ended, I turned to family. I called one sibling, and they loaned me money to cover the mortgage. I called another sibling, but they told me they did not have money, only enough for a small loan. I hesitated, but I ended up calling my father too, a call that I did not want to make. His words were sharp, his tone cutting. He gave me a small amount and said I did not need to pay it back. But the cruelty in how he spoke stung more than the money helped. I told my mother what was happening, and she quietly began sending me money every week to help keep us afloat. One morning, I started doing laundry and discovered there was no water. I assumed it was something going on in the subdivision. I went to the window and peeked outside. I did not see anyone working in the neighborhood. So I called the water department. They told me my service had been shut off. My mother had it turned back on that same day. I cried myself to sleep more nights than I can count. I began going to food banks, trying to keep a sense of routine for my child, making sure we had meals, making sure he did not have to carry my shame, protecting him from the emotional burden I was carrying, the humiliation, fear, and heaviness you feel as a parent who is struggling to provide. I couldn't keep secrets anymore. I was tired. I told my friends that I lost my job, and they stepped in to help. One friend paid my mortgage for a month and said, "Pay it back whenever you can." Another friend covered my son's school activities and after school classes. My dear friend in the neighborhood paid me to watch their newborn for a few hours so I could bring in a little money. I was so desperate. I felt trapped between pride and survival, and slowly, day by day, I learned what it meant to accept the help I had once judged others for needing. My mother told me she could not continue to help forever. And then she said something I will never forget. Go apply for public assistance. You have paid into this system. It was created for people like you. I cried and cried. It took everything in me to even consider asking for that kind of help. I was stubborn, and in my pride, I just could not ask for help. But there was a voice that kept whispering, "You can do this on your own." But I knew deep inside I could not. I also understood at this time that God was stripping something away, not to punish me, but to move me. I had once judged other people. I would see them standing in those lines and thought, why can't they just find work? And suddenly, I was one of them. The lesson was humbling. Whatever judgment I had carried dissolved in the face of my own needs. Loneliness became a teacher then. It sharpened my survival and reminding me that surrender was not failure. Surrender was a doorway, an opening into help I could never have reached on my own. I told God, I don't understand why this is happening, but I will do what I must. My tears had run dry. I was exhausted. And then my help came, but not in the ways I expected. One day, a complete stranger that I met was a director of a food bank in the community that I lived in. We became friends. She listened to my story and connected with me, a counselor who specialized in employment. That counselor suggested that same day that I met her, I should attend a program at a local church where retired executives volunteered to help people polish resumes and practice interviewing skills. I did not want to go. That night, it was a storm. The lightning was so severe, but something in my spirit said, go, go. So I went. There were about 5 of us gather around a conference table that evening. One by one, we introduced ourselves, sharing both our careers and struggles. The last woman to speak said she had found stability by applying for a program connected to her bank. The program covered her mortgage for 2 years while she rebuilt her life. Her words struck me. I sat there speechless, in total shock. My heart was pounding. Could this be the reason I had pushed through the storm? Could this be the reason I was sitting in that very room? In that moment, I felt guided, as though my divine ancestors had led me there through the rain and lightning to hear those exact words. That night, as soon as I got home, I checked my bank and they were a part of the same program. I applied and I was approved. 2 full years of mortgage relief. I applied for food stamps, medical coverage for my son and me until I could find steady work. That moment was more than paperwork and approval letters. It was a moment of God's love for me. I could breathe again. I could sleep without the same fears. I did not erase the pain, the scars, and the long nights of worry. It was mercy arriving at the very moment I had nothing left to give myself. And I knew then being chosen for transformation does not mean being chosen only for pain. It means being prepared, broken, open, stretched, and strengthened for a purpose far greater than the one I thought I was building. Your deliverance does not always come as a miracle that wipes away the storm. Sometimes it comes as a hand reaching in the middle of it, holding you steady until the sky clears. I had to learn how to help myself in new ways. I also learned survival is not shameful. Asking for help is not failure. It is human. And once I understood that, I stopped carrying shame the way I once did. I began to tell my story. I became someone who could speak into that wound and say, here is how I rose. I started telling the story first to myself, then to others. My son that has a mother who would not be devastated by hardship. He saw my tearful, sometimes, yes, but also resourceful, humble, and resilient. He watched as the divine and my community stepped in at the very moment I could not sustain the fight alone. And that is one of the great transformations. What you learn as you go through is how to hold both sorrow and gratitude at the same time. It's okay to be disappointed in those who did not show up, yet thankful for those who did, to hold grief for what was lost and respect for what was gained. It's about legacy. I do not want my story to end in blame or bitterness. I want it to become a bridge for others who stand where I once stood, at the edge of losing everything. So I tell this for one who is listening, who feels invisible, for the single parent who lies awake at night unable to sleep for worry, for the woman who has carried her pain in silence because she believes needing help made her weak. I tell you this so you will know you are not less for needing assistance. You are in a season. God is with you, and help can come even when it feels impossible. If you are in a place of survival, here is what I've learned that carried me through. I never stopped praying for God's help. Say yes to help when it comes, even if your pride resists. Pride costs more than help. Reach out to your community, your county and state programs, food banks, churches, retired executives. They exist and they can connect you to resources. Use every connection you have, friends, neighbors, colleagues. People want to help when they see the truth of your need. Let them. Apply for programs without shame, unemployment, food assistance, medical coverage. These are bridges, not permanent labels. And when you begin to recover, decide how you will give back. These are not guarantees, but they are steps that opened doors for me. God and my divine ancestors who guided me through the storm were not a promise of easy days. They were a steady presence. Sometimes that presence spoke through a food bank director who became a friend, through a counselor who refused to let me give up. Sometimes it's through a stormy night when I felt fear but went anyway. They showed me that help is not always the hand we expected, but it is always on time. After the mortgage program and medical coverage, I found my footing again. I found work that fit different seasons of my life. I rebuilt trust with myself. I learned to set money aside differently. I began to tell the story the only way I could, as a witness, not as a victim. I began to use my voice to sow dignity into others who felt unseen. I want to speak to you right now. You are not abandoned by God or the ancestors. If you are healed, offer help to others. If you are angry, let that anger guide you to the boundaries you need. If you are afraid, Let courage come in small steps. And know this, you will not carry the shame forever. There will come a morning when you rise and feel steadier than the night before. My story is your story. It is an invite to anyone who has known the kind of loss that feels like there is no way out. You must stand up and say, no, I am becoming. It's important to know and to hold on to the kindness of friend and the mercy of strangers. May God and the divine ancestors walk with you through your own storms. May you find the programs, the people, the small mercies that stop the storm. May you become not in spite of what was withheld, but because of the wisdom those moments called out of you. Thank you for sitting with me. I see you. I honor you. I am you. Keep becoming. Keep telling your stories. Keep believing. This is Butterfly. You are becoming.